Ichinose SS, linked thoughts. Once the groups were announced, I made my way toward Group 8, a faint flicker of hope resting in my chest. If I happened to be placed in the same group as Ayano Koji-kun, then, in this third uninhabited island exam, I would be able to spend 3 days together with him. But that hope was quickly dashed. Almost immediately, I caught sight of him heading off toward an entirely different group. It can't be helped, I suppose. This wasn't something I could control, no matter how much I wished for it. I had to switch gears immediately. A short while later, I spotted one of the students assigned to my group, approaching carefully so as not to startle her. I called out, "I look forward to working with you, Horikita-san." She turned to look at me, her lips pressing into a thin line for a brief moment before she met my eyes. I knew there was a decent chance that class leaders might end up in the same group, but to think I'd be paired with you of all people, Ichinose-san. Did she view me as an easy partner to handle, rather than a troublesome opponent? No, honestly. It works in my favor if she thinks of me that way. If this were a purely class-based competition, it might have been a bit troublesome, I said, but looking at the rules, cooperating as a group clearly leads to mutual benefit, so it's rather good setup. If you and I pool our strengths, Horikita-san, we might just be able to guide our group to a safe and steady victory. From there, we discussed the importance of working hand in hand as allies rather than fighting as enemies, gradually finding common ground. And naturally, during that process, we arrived at a topic we couldn't avoid. It seems reaching a mutual understanding and aiming for first place will go smoother than expected, Horikita-san noted. However, there is one critical issue that both you and I must treat with the utmost importance. How to handle the expulsions. Right? As she nodded, I made it absolutely clear that I would not allow a single expulsion from my class. By drawing that line, I knew she would naturally adopt the exact same stance for her own, but that was exactly why my thoughts were already racing a step ahead. Assuming Class A and Class D joined hands to solidify our defenses, how would Ayano Koji-kun make his move? Once he fully analyzed the rules of this special exam, what kind of strategy would he employ? I knew, deep down, that deciphering his plan would be the most critical factor in protecting my classmates who would be assigned to Ayano Koji-kun's group. That detail would undoubtedly be the most important for him. Keeping any potential expulsions strictly within his own reach would be the most reliable, controllable method. If that was the case, then all I had to do was link up my thinking with his, matching his pace as I fought through this exam. Ayano Koji-kun understands me, and I understand Ayano Koji-kun. That is everything. Kushida SS, suspicious, but in order to secure myself a safe, reliable position in Group 3, I wasted no time making my move. My goal was simple: mingle with the girls from the other classes the way I always did, and quietly deepen those relationships without making a scene. Dinner on the first day of the special exam was supposed to be the perfect opportunity for that, but my plan fell apart almost immediately with the arrival of a certain boy. "Would you like to eat together?" The person calling out to me was, well, I won't go so far as to say lo and behold, but it was none other than Ayano Koji-kun. A lone guy suddenly diving headfirst into a flock of teenage girls. Even if there was no hidden message behind it at all. For me, it was still nothing short of a nuisance. Especially with students from Class D around, the information had already made its way to me, too. Reliable information that Ichinose Honami, the leader of Class D, harbored romantic feelings for Ayano Koji-kun. I had no desire for Amikura, someone close to Ichinose, to start spreading unnecessary speculation because of something she saw here. Even so, now that he had spoken to me, the good girl version of me had no choice but to handle it smoothly. I accepted his invitation with a pleasant smile, and eventually led the conversation away from the other students. "What are you trying to pull, Ayano Koji-kun?" I wanted to know why he had approached me so suddenly, so I got straight to the point. "Didn't you say you wanted to discuss our plans for tomorrow?" His words were always like that, a mixture of truth and lies, stirred together so smoothly that I could never tell which was which. I couldn't trust them. At this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if he were acting with the intent of ruining all the effort I'd put in. I never said that. Besides, it's not like you actually need my help, right? Honestly, you're just being a massive pain. Is that so? I figured that giving you a chance to prove your worth to the group would satisfy your need for approval. I thought you'd be happy." He replied, his face remaining entirely unreadable and devoid of emotion, as usual. It was genuinely infuriating. It really pissed me off, and yet, for some inexplicable reason, I couldn't bring myself to hate him completely. This was the exact same person whom I had wanted to murder during the unanimous special exam. "Don't make me laugh. If it were just you, Ayano Koji-kun, that'd be one thing. But do you have any idea how agonizing it is to be put on a pedestal in front of Shinohara and the others when they already know my true nature? They're just messing with me for their own amusement." After watching his attitude this far, I arrived at one answer, though. "I suppose I understand that you can't exactly rely on Shinohara or Ike," I murmured with a heavy sigh and an air of annoyance, reasoning to myself that being selected through a simple process of elimination was somewhat unavoidable. "Putting that aside, it looks like you're adjusting quite nicely to your new class. With Sakayanagi gone, they lost their safety net. They probably would have rallied around anyone in that position, wouldn't they?" "You don't say. If there's something you want to ask, go ahead." "It's nothing in particular." That was what I thought, but the moment I said it, one thing that had been bothering me floated up in my mind. "It's just, the rumors about you right now are endless. I don't believe all of them, obviously, but I've been hearing plenty of things from Class D as well. That Ichinose Honami was in love with Ayano Koji, that something may have happened between them, some event that brought the two of them closer." Ridiculous. That was what I told myself, and yet, ever since I learned about it, an irritation I couldn't explain had been stirring inside me. Saying it loud wouldn't change anything. If anything, it would only make the weight of it feel heavier. Anyway, thinking about that any further was unpleasant, so I decided to change the subject. Having my true nature exposed has been almost entirely a nightmare. But having moments like this where I can just drop the act and speak my mind might be the only salvation. And using that as an excuse to escape, I started walking. "Sorry, but I'm heading back. I really don't want to draw any more unnecessary heat from Shinohara and the others. Your double life sounds exhausting." Easy for him to say. He was an outsider to it, so I didn't want him tossing those words out so lightly. "It's a little late for that. For my own sake, I have continued to wear this mask, but lately, I've found myself wondering, how long am I supposed to keep doing this? Until my student life ends? Even after I enter the society and become an adult? Even after I get married? Even after I grow old? How long, just how long will I have to keep wearing this mask?" Ichiku and Nanase's love life. By the time their conversation had run its course, there were still about 30 minutes left before their private pool reservation ended. Nanase, however, seemed ready to leave first. Just as she began to excuse herself, Amasawa called out to her. "We rarely get the chance to talk alone like this," she said. "Mind if I ask you a little question?" Nanase stopped. "What is it?" She did not believe for a moment that Amasawa would so easily become an ally. Her expression barely changed, but for the briefest instant, she braced herself. "Nanase-chan, have you ever had a boy confess to you or dated anyone?" A pair of wide eyes and a devilish smirk stared right back at Nanase. "Excuse me?" There were any number of subjects Amasawa could have brought up. Ayano Koji, Ishigami, the White Room. Nanase had expected something along those lines. Instead, the question that came flying at her belonged to an entirely different world, so unexpected that she failed to respond at once. "Well?" Amasawa asked, still smiling. "Have you?" "I have never dated a man before," Nanase answered stiffly. "Wow. So you're a completely pure girl, then?" "We are second-year high school students," Nanase replied. "I would imagine those with romantic experience are in the minority." "Not at all. I'm no expert, but word is it's around 50%. That means 1 in 2 people have already experienced it. And if you're cute or pretty, wouldn't the odds be even higher? Around 50%? Nance repeated. "Is that true?" It was not a subject she had ever seriously considered, and because of that, the number itself felt strangely unreal. "I was in the White Room the whole time," Amasawa said lightly. "And ever since coming to this school, I've only had eyes for Ayano Koji-senpai, so I don't have any romance stories of my own. But you're different, aren't you, Nanase-chan?" It was the exact sort of idle gossip normal high school girls would share. Yet, beneath the surface, Nanase sensed a faint, lingering incongruity. "I see," she said, as a way of probing into my past. "It is a rather good question." If Nanase hadn't grown up in a typical family environment, her lack of romantic experience wouldn't be strange at all. "Ah, you're reading way too much into it," Amasawa said. "It was just an innocent question, that's all." "Well, either way, my answer remains the same. Then do you at least have a crush on anyone?" Amasawa asked. "Don't tell me it's Ayano Koji-senpai." A certain someone flashed across her mind for a fleeting moment, but right now, she couldn't even recall his smile. "There is no one I like," Nanase replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Almost as if she were fleeing, Nanase turned and hurried out of the private pool area. "You've got a much cuter side to you than I thought." Nanase had shown only the slightest hint of agitation, but for Amasawa, that was enough to feel a small flicker of joy. Konji and Michan SS, invisible thread. Before breaking away from his group, Konji had already checked Wang Meiyu's location through GPS and moved ahead of her, positioning himself near the goal before she could arrive. For a good while after, he simply leaned his back against the trunk of a massive tree, resting at his leisure until the echoing chatter of the Group 3 students drifted up to his ears. Ever since this latest special exam had commenced, a single, specific detail had occupied a corner of Konji's mind. The fact that Ayano Koji Kiyotaka and Wang Meiyu had been assigned to the exact same group. Given the cutthroat parameters of this trial, a scenario engineered to force the expulsion of at least one individual, it was only logical that Ayano Koji would select a sacrificial lamb from within his immediate sphere of influence. In other words, from the ranks of Group 3. Under such conditions, the possibility that one of the Class A students would be chosen could not be dismissed. No, rather than a possibility, within Konji's mind, it was but an absolute, 100% certainty. The only remaining riddle was which of the 4 individuals would be the one to face the axe. As he stood in the shadows, listening with nonchalance to the tense friction heating up between Ibuki, Kushida, and Shinohara, Konji's grasp of the situation crystallized. Assessing the chessboard, he deduced that the probability of Wang being targeted was remarkably low. By all conventional logic, the safest, most trouble-free course of action would be to slip away undetected into the foliage. But this was Konji we were talking about. Guided by an almost predatory instinct, he sensed that this precise moment called for an intentional, grand entrance. Think of it as a silent, unspoken ultimatum. If this little incident served as a catalyst for some anonymous player to start spinning malicious schemes, Konji would simply deliver a swift and appropriate retribution when the time came. After all, Her existence could never truly be twisted into a vulnerability against him. At the end of the day, everything he did was entirely for his own benefit. My, it appears that troublesome affair has finally come to an end. The moment the uproar simmered down to a quiet hum, Konji allowed his suppressed presence to bleed openly into the clearing, stepping forward to materialize directly before the startled members of Group 3. You appeared from a rather strange place. Don't tell me you were watching us? Katsuragi asked. Whirling around, Konji casually brushed his golden hair back and flashed a fearless smile. I simply thought it would be rude to interrupt, so I waited. In stark contrast to the suspicious Katsuragi, Ayano Koji's expression remained completely unchanged. He merely stared at Konji with cool, dispassionate eyes. You seem to be alone, Katsuragi said. Where are the rest of your group members? I do prefer acting alone, you see, Konji remarked. I imagine it will still take them a little while to arrive. Concluding that lingering any further with the crowd was a waste of his valuable time, Konji marched forward, narrowing his focus entirely on the girl who was the sole purpose of his detour. My apologies, but I'd like you to listen to me for a moment. Do you mind? He asked. Without hesitation, he boldly took hold of Wang Mu's arm, guiding her a comfortable distance away. What is it? Wang stammered. This is hardly the proper place. Let us take a short walk, shall we? He spoke with an airy indifference, completely unbothered by the fact that the nearby students could easily catch every word. Show me your smartwatch, if you please. After shooting a brief, meaningful glance in Ayano Koji's direction, Konji murmured what do you mean? Wang asked hesitantly. The number of tokens you currently possess, Konji replied. I wish to know exactly how many there are. Though, I suppose it's a different story entirely if you have a reason you cannot show me. No, yes. That is fine, but... Thoroughly thrown off balance by his overwhelming rhythm, she complied nonetheless, twisting her wrist to display the glowing interface of her digital display. It seems you have accumulated a solid number of tokens, Konji said, looking at the smartwatch. However, it is always best to be absolutely certain. Once we factor in the multiplier, this total still leaves you in the danger zone. Konji operated his own smartwatch and transferred 30 of the tokens he had earned to her, quickly taking care of what needed to be done. Yet this many, eh? Wang gasped, shocked. It is nothing you need to worry about. Consider this an insurance policy from me. However, it would be quite problematic for me if you were to hand them over to anyone else, you see. Saying so, Konji casually walked alongside her, crossing the goal to officially log their arrival. Why did you give those tokens to me? Wang finally asked. And so many of them at that. Despite appearances, I'm a man who values the debts he owes. The thread remains connected, you see. A debt thread? Konji flashed a broad smirk at Wang, who tilted her head in utter confusion.